When you open up Photoshop for the first time, it'll look something like this. You will have tools on the left-hand side. You'll have drop-down menus up the top. You'll have 2 rows of panels over here. And what we want to do is configure this to make a little bit more sense. The majority of the work you're going to do in Photoshop is going to be right over here on the right-hand side. So it kind of doesn't make any sense to be working over here and then working over here and then coming back over here. So what we like to do is move everything over to one side. But before I want to do that, I want to condense some of these panels and get them in a working, suitable environment. So first of all, what I want to do is grab some of these tabs that I'm not going to use. So I'm going to grab the Channels tab, drag it to the canvas, and click on the tiny little X. I'm going to do the same thing with the paths. I'm going to grab the paths, grab it to the canvas, and click on the tiny little X to get rid of it. Now, if I ever want those panels to come back, I can always come back up to Windows, and then come down into Paths, and Paths will pop back up, and then I can bring that back over. I'll hover it until I see the blue line, and then once I see a blue line, I can let go with my mouse. It happens a lot when you just sort of click on something and it disappears. Anytime you get a window that disappears, you can come up to the top here and find it in the drop-down menu. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Paths tab, pull it out, get rid of it. Also with the libraries, I'm going to pull the libraries out and I'm going to get rid of it. Now this cute little button here is your history panel. We're definitely going to want to use our history panel. So I like to use the history up at the top. And we're not really going to be using the colors and swatches for a while, so I'm going to drag those out, get rid of them, and color, and get rid of that as well. And I like to bring my adjustments and slide that right over so that tab is here. So I like my histories at top, adjustments, and then I like my layers here. The next thing I want to do is grab my tools panel and drag that over to the left hand as well. And I'm just going to grab, there's a tiny little faded bar. I don't know if you can see this in the recording, but I'm going to click on that and then drag that right over and then wait for that blue line to show up. And I'm going to just drop it there. So now what I have is all of my tools in one place and all the things that I'm going to be using over here. What I want is to have this workspace available to me at all times. So every time I open up Photoshop, I'm going to see it this way instead of going through all of this rearranging. So what I'm going to do is save this workspace. I'm going to come up to Windows, Workspace, and then New Workspace. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to name it something very clever, like my last name. And because I already have one, I'm just going to write new so we can see what that looks like. And I'm going to click on Save. So when I go into Windows and I go into Workspace, I will see that new workspace, Porter New. Now, sometimes we get things all sort of rearranged and we may need to reset that workspace. You can do that right here. So let's just say, for instance, I went crazy and I lost that and I moved that over somewhere else. What I can do is go into Windows, you go up to Windows, Workspace, and then go back to Reset Porter New. And then I'll set that almost back to where it was. Almost. Somehow actions popped up for us. Another thing that we can do is go into Windows, Workspace, and then default is Essentials, and that's how it looked when we first started. So take us back exactly the way it looked when it started. So then I can go back into Workspace and go into New, and then take it back to my workspace. When we start every single tutorial, my workspace will look like this. I'm always going to have my tools over here, history at top, my adjustments in the second grouping of panels, and properties here. All right, so that's it with how to set up our workspace.